Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Whispers from the Beyond. I'm your host, Zach. If you have a story you'd like to share, please email me at hauntedhtx@gmail.com. I have some great stories for you tonight, so let's get into it. These next two stories come from Teriglyde. My parents' haunted neighborhood. My parents live in a community in the desert of the southwestern United States. After graduating college, I spent some time living at their house, going through the misery of unemployment and applying for jobs. Being away from the city, their neighborhood can get really dark at night, especially when there are no clouds or no moon. This neighborhood has had some issues with the paranormal. People have posted on the community Facebook page asking if anyone has had strange experiences, and the comments on those posts blow up with people sharing their encounters. Dogs barking and growling at entities not visible in the house. Silverware and dishes went missing over time only to later find it mysteriously in their attic. Shadow figures, etc. One late night, I was alone at their house watching TV. My parents were gone on vacation back east. My parents have this odd cat who is the living definition of a scaredy cat. Even though it enjoys going outside, the cat won't go unless you're out there with it. If you go back inside, the cat will immediately be cowering in the windows, begging to be let in. As I was watching TV, the cat came darting past my feet to the sliding glass door that opens to the backyard. She was in the low, sneaky position cats get when they see something they want to hunt or attack. She was frozen and fixated on something in the back corner of the yard. Out of curiosity about what the cat was seeing, I opened the sliding door and let it out. The cat immediately runs up to the bushes in the corner of the yard and stops, still in the low, sneaky position. I walk outside wondering what in the world is going on. This was one of those dark nights without a moon in the sky, making it difficult to see anything except the outline of the bushes. Suddenly, an orb of bright yellow light flies out of the bushes about the size of a softball. The orb goes up and over the cinder block wall into the neighbor's yard. Both me and the cat jump out of fright. I run back inside, filled with the familiar dread feeling of being around something paranormal. Collecting my courage, I grabbed a flashlight and went back out to see if I could find anything and to find the cat. I go back to the corner of the backyard and see nothing in the bushes where the orb came out. I search the whole yard and can't find the cat, who is also too little to jump the cinder block walls. The whole time, being outside again felt wrong, like I shouldn't be there. I went back inside and waited a couple of hours until the cat showed up in the window, still in a state of panic. I knew I saw something with this experience because it was this weird little cat who brought my attention to it. A few days later, my parents are back from their vacation, and I tell them my weird experience. This kind of freaked out my mom, who has read the Facebook community posts about the neighborhood having paranormal activity. Going to bed, I suddenly see a bunch of police cars show up outside the neighbor's house and our house. Police are getting out with their guns drawn. I alerted my parents, and we lurked in the windows wondering what was going on. I see the next-door neighbor girl outside talking to the police. Nothing really happened except the police searching her house. The next day, my dad called our neighbor asking if everything was okay and if they could help. Apparently, their daughter was home alone while they were away. She was walking in the hallway when she saw this black shadowy figure in the house at the end of the hallway. She screamed and ran for her phone and called the police. The police searched the house and the surrounding area, but found nobody or any evidence of a break-in. This was the neighbor's house whose yard the orb flew into a few nights prior. I worked for 2 years in an old house built in 1915 that has been converted into an office. This is in a historical town out west in the United States that is a tourist destination. We called this house the admin house, where around 12 people worked, which was for a larger company in the region. People's schedules were not consistent, so you would often find yourself alone in the house or with a few others. However, we didn't like being alone in the house due to it being haunted. I have the belief that the spirit of a woman still dwells there. The CEO's office was the hotspot and sometimes the basement too. Activity usually happens in the early morning or late afternoon when you are alone or only a few people are in the office. I would be working at my computer in the quiet admin house and hear a deep inhale and dramatic sigh of a woman coming from the CEO's office. Sometimes the sound of the chair being moved or papers shuffling would accompany the sighs. Knowing the CEO was not in the office, I'd get chills every time this happened. I'd get up and look in the office finding nobody there. Sometimes papers would be scattered on the floor. Other employees started taking notice of these strange happenings. The HR lady once came up from the basement asking if anyone just came down there. She heard the basement door open and close, then heard a woman give out a big sigh. Getting up to look, she found nobody there. None of us went into the basement who were working at the time. One of the most bizarre happenings was once when I had to come into the office alone on a Sunday to finish up a report due the following day. After a few minutes of logging into my computer, I started to hear opera music. However, the music sounded like it was being played on an old phonograph with scratchy noises. I thought it was coming from outside and continued working. After a couple of minutes of the music stopping and then returning, I suddenly realized it was coming from the CEO's office. Weirded out, I get up and walk towards the office. As I'm approaching the office, the music is getting louder and I hear a woman sigh. Just as I hear the sigh, the music stops abruptly. I look in the office and it's empty. The CEO's computer is not even in the room since she took it home. One last encounter I will share was when it was just me and the CFO at the office. The CFO is coming out of the bathroom when she responds to someone calling her name from the CEO's office. The CFO goes into the office and then comes out with a freaked out look on her face. Nobody was there, but a woman audibly called her name. It was just the two of us at the office. This experience creeped us out enough to make us be done for the day and leave the house. This story comes from Beautifulnet 2409. Haunted Work Building. Been looking for this kind of sub because I've been dying to share these experiences. I'm an avid believer in the paranormal, but if I wasn't, this building would have done it for me. I used to work in a pretty standard pub in a small English town, with lots of regulars, nothing out of the ordinary. But after a while, the staff started to tell me stories. I learned it was an old Victorian house, with a family living upstairs, a woman living where the bar was, and that the cellar once had been a doctor's surgery. The deepest room in the cellar was used as a laundry room, but had always made me extremely uneasy. I was told this was where the old surgery was, and that there was a ghost in the cellar that didn't like women down there. They said the only way to protect yourself was to tell the ghost you had a right to be there. I also heard that the woman who died in the bar was still there. I was uneasy, but I kept working. Nothing happened until I had been there a few months. The first big experience. I was in the pub alone before a shift. I had gone down to the cellar to collect bottles of drinks to refill the fridges upstairs. I then decided to go deeper into the cellar to get clean towels. On my way out, the lights cut. I heard the laundry door slam and footsteps coming up behind me. They sounded so heavy, like a man. I heard heavy breathing, and I swear my heart was pounding. As soon as the footsteps stopped, The lights came on. There was nobody there, but I ran. I ran upstairs and bolted the door. I had the worst feeling. When my colleagues turned up, they said I was shaking. I remember just praying and refusing to go back downstairs. The second experience. I was in the bar with my colleague when a woman walked up to the bar. We were serving other customers, so she was in our periphery. She very clearly asked us if we could help her. We said yes, just to wait a minute, please, and she said that she'd be waiting. She walked out of the bar and into the adjoining concert room. Once I had finished serving, we went into the room to see what she wanted. She was gone. What made it weird, that room had no other exits. She walked in and vanished. We checked the CCTV and there was no sign, but we had both seen her. It shook me up, but unlike the first experience in the cellar, I didn't feel scared. I felt sad. It was like she was a residual spirit, lost and lonely. I hope she has managed to find peace. The third experience. This one was the second negative experience. Every area in the building had a telephone in it, the idea being that we could just call each room, as it was a huge building. The only phone that was broken was the one in the cellar because it never worked and my boss just didn't see the point in replacing it. Nobody really used the phones anyway. I had finished up for the day and had gone upstairs to the office and staff room. I was collecting my bags when the internal phone in the office rang. I was very surprised because there was nobody else in the building. I went to check the screen to see where the person was calling from. They were calling from the cellar phone, the one that had been broken for years. I frantically texted the other staff. They confirmed nobody was there. I answered the phone, but nobody spoke, so I hung up. The second I did, they started calling again. I had that awful, uneasy feeling from the cellar ghost again. I grabbed my things and got the hell out. I told my boss the next day. She had checked the cellar and confirmed the phone was still out of use. I felt really sick. That place had so many little spooky things. Doors closing, bar shutters rattling, things moving around, snooker balls rolling on their own, curtains twitching, but none of that stuck with me like these three experiences. The second one just made me feel sad, but the encounters in that cellar made me feel sick. I used to dread going down there. I'd feel upset and emotional every time I left that cellar and would only feel safe if I prayed or if I crossed myself. I have no idea what was living down there, but it can't have been good. Every woman who went into that cellar came out looking pale and upset and needed a few minutes to herself. I was thrilled when I got to quit that job. This story comes from Best Turnover 2102. Hauntings in my apartment. I live in an apartment in Pennsylvania. The building is over 100 years old and it's right next to a funeral home. I've been here and never had any real strange experiences up until the last couple of weeks. I should also note that I have a child who lives with me half the time and the other half she's with her mom. One night, while I was drifting off to sleep, I started to feel the onset of sleep paralysis. All of my limbs were going stiff and started to feel pinned down. Luckily, I was able to snap myself out of it by reaching for the closest thing to ground myself, which was my phone. I was able to sleep fine after that. Then, maybe a week later, my daughter is asleep in her room, which connects to my bedroom through a doorway that sits directly across from my bed. I woke up and saw the silhouette of a child standing against the wall next to the doorframe of my daughter's room. It was just this black mass, darker than the room, with no face or distinguishable limbs or hair, and it just stood there like it was staring at me. Her door was still closed, and the figure was on the side that would be covered by the door if it were open. I was definitely freaked out, but chose to ignore it, turned my gaze away from it, and went back to sleep. When I woke up again a couple of hours later, it was gone like nothing ever happened. Fast forward a few days, and my girlfriend and I are at a flea market and run into a medium selling her wares and talking to people. I told her what I was experiencing, and she looked concerned and told me to cleanse my apartment by burning sage. She also gave me a small vial of holy oil to put on my front entrance to keep bad spirits away. She also wanted me to put some on my daughter's forehead to protect her. The next day, my girlfriend and I went to my apartment to do a cleanse. While I was cleansing a room, my girlfriend was waiting in the kitchen, which has my front door. My girlfriend and I suddenly heard that door slam itself shut. She actually saw it happen. But after that, my apartment felt more peaceful, and I no longer got a bad vibe. I do plan on moving out ASAP, though for different reasons. This story comes from Illgetyoumypretties, Haunted House. When I was around 21, I got divorced from my son's father and moved back home. Me and my son, who was around 15 months old, didn't have any space there, so I was looking to move out ASAP. My best friend's sister just rented a house and was looking for a roommate. So, long story short, we ended up moving in with her and her 5-year-old daughter. Everything was good at first. Then, little things would start happening, like the lights being on when I thought I turned them off, the washing machine lid up and not washing clothes even though I swore I had closed it. Then, one day, I came home from work and my roommate's praying beads were in the mailbox. I asked her why she put them there. She said she didn't, but maybe her daughter somehow did. So, some time passes with these little odd occurrences happening. One night, we decided we were going to go out. My son was with his dad, and she called her cousin to come over and babysit. We are telling him about all the strange things that we have noticed, and he says something about not being scared of no ghost. Right as he said that, a glass that was on a bookshelf flew across the room and hit him. So we freak out, but we are both broke, young, single moms who don't want to go back home, and we just kind of push it out of our minds. We decided to get 2 puppies for our kids. I swear you may think I'm lying, but they never grew an inch while we were living there. Then there would be magnets in the sink for no reason. Things started to escalate fast. One weekend, when the kids were at their father's house, me and my roommate decided to clean the kids' playroom. It was a wreck. The next morning, it was a disaster again. Remember, the kids were gone for the weekend. At this point, I was scared to come home. One night, I was in bed, my roommate was in hers, and we heard knocking on the windows outside. We both had toxic exes and thought it might be one of them, so we called the police. They came out, and nothing. They said it didn't look like anyone was there. We decided it was time to move, and as much as I didn't want to, I had to move back home when the kids started to get hurt. My roommate's daughter cut herself on a mirror that came out of nowhere. My son fell out of a chair and busted his face. He got really bad nosebleeds out of nowhere. While we were moving, a huge mirror that was anchored into the wall fell and busted on my back. A lot of things happened in that house. The old man who lived across the street told us no one ever lived there long. Thank you for listening to this episode of Whispers from the Beyond. If you have a story you'd like to share, please email me at hauntedhtx@gmail.com. I want to thank all of the authors for letting me share their stories. Come connect with me on Instagram. The link will be in the description. Finally, please leave a 5-star rating and a positive review so more people can find the show. That's all for now. Bye, y'all.